I, 21, had a rich grandfather who died recently and I didn't know him very well. He divorced my grandmother when my dad was 13 and barely spoke to him or his siblings for a few years after that. My aunts and uncle never why and felt really rejected by my grandfather's lack of interest in seeing them on a regular basis. When my dad was 18 he reached out to my grandfather and reconnected with him. Eventually, my grandfather was able to somewhat mend his relationship with my dad's other siblings, and he even paid for their college. However, my grandfather and grandmother were still pretty bitter towards each other, but never told anyone why or the reason for the divorce. They didn't really stop being openly hostile to each other until my dad died when I was 4. Now that my grandfather's dead, the secret came out when the will was read. Apparently, my grandma had an affair, and when she was pregnant with Aunt she didn't know who the father was but chose my grandfather because he was the most financially stable. My grandfather didn't know for the longest time until he caught my grandmother in another affair and found an old letter her first lover sent that she kept. He was furious and filed for divorce and used every legal although not very ethical trick in the book to hoard as many of the assets and resources as he could. The will stated that before each child could claim their share of the inheritance they would have to take a DNA test to prove that they were his biological child. To any child that refused the test or they were proven not to be biologically related to my grandfather, then they would just be given $5,000, while the rest would be allocated to the children who were proven to be his biological child. We were all shocked and Grandma was livid. There were a lot of fights, but in the end, everyone wanted to present a united front and just try and find some kind of loophole, claim the money, and then take a DNA test. I never agreed to that and resented being told what to do as a legal adult. I tried to talk to them about it, but they shut me down twice. My uncle's wife even accused me of not really being my dad's kid, so I shouldn't get any money anyway. That pissed me off, so I just took the DNA test out of spite, and I am my grandfather's biological grandchild, so as of right now I'm getting most of the money. My paternal side was really angry with me. It's now started this domino effect where everyone is starting to fight with everyone, and now that the euphoria of showing up my uncle's wife is wearing off I'm starting to feel guilty because of how it's affecting my cousins, so am I the idiot? Not the idiot. This was a stupid game, and everyone won the stupid prize. The family sounds ridiculous and your aunt opened her yap and got a mouthful of her own crap to chew on. It sounds like there's a lot going on, but if they want to fight over the will, it's likely because some of them already know they don't fit into the terms and just want the money. They could all be related, for all they know. You're just abiding by the terms of the will and in the end, you also got a little back at someone who was unnecessarily cruel to you. Too bad for her. Not the idiot. It was your grandfather's wish, so if anything he is an idiot. And your aunt sounds like a nasty piece of work. Also, the rest of your family has the choice to do the same and get tested. If it is a hell ton of money, however, you might consider setting up a college fund for your nephews and nieces, one that the aunt can't touch. It would be a nice gesture from you that might unify the family while respecting your grandfather's wishes. That's a pretty messed up will and spiteful thing your grandfather did, look what it's done to your family. The ethical thing to do would be for all those that are his blood relatives to claim the money, then split it evenly with the ones who aren't. Not that you have to, but if you want to put your grandfather's bitterness to rest with him, rather than tear the family apart, then I think that's how you do it. Not the idiot. I have been living with my roommate, Holly, for almost 1.5 years. Holly wasn't a good roommate. I was doing most of the chores. I didn't like her much, but she seemed to think that I was a really good friend of hers. Anytime I tried to talk to her, she would either deflect or give excuses. She told me once that it was my fault because I do it better than her, and she is now not used to doing chores. 6 months ago, she told me that she got pregnant. I was covering half of her rent too because she didn't have any money. I wanted to ask her to move out, but again, she would say something, or give excuses, or start crying, and I would back off. A few months later, the situation has got worse for her. Quit her job. Couldn't find another. We were speaking one day and she told me how lucky she felt, having a friend like me. She thanked me for being so nice about the rent and the food, and she also told me she is not feeling scared about being a single mom as I would be there to help her. I freaked out hard. Helping out a person when they are in a spot is one thing. But it was clear that she was expecting me to help her even after the baby was born. I didn't want that. Another month passed by. I was making plans to leave. Me and my friend found an apartment to share. On September 3rd, when she wasn't at home, I moved all my things to my new apartment. Since most of the things outside her room was mine, the apartment was pretty bare when I left. I called my landlord and informed him that I won't be renewing my lease, which was ending at the end of September. He promised to return my security deposit in full at the end of the month. After that, I left a message to Holly that I have moved out and she has to talk to the landlord about her situation from next month. To be clear, I paid my share of the rent for this month to the landlord and told him to ask Holly about the rest and about making a new lease, new security deposit. I refused to attend any more calls from her. Bottom line is I left an 8-9 months pregnant woman who was depending on me for many things, like rent, food, etc., on her own during a pandemic while she was jobless. She had left me multiple voicemails and told me how I should have talked to her and at least given a heads up instead of just moving out. She told me that she is struggling a lot and she is about to give birth soon and that I need to help her. She is saying that it's crappy of me to help her so much and then abandon her. She told me that she wants to meet me and explain things. She thinks that talking to her would make me move back. I refuse to respond. All my friends have conflicting opinions. Some think I could have just talked to her and resolved it. Some think that I should have at least given her a heads up. Some think I should move back in. Many think that it's not my fault at all. Again, she has 1 month to figure things out with the landlord before the lease ends. I didn't talk to her because it never worked in the past and I didn't want to be guilt-tripped out of moving. Here for unbiased opinions. Am I the idiot? Everyone's the idiot here, so of course, your roommate is in the wrong for many things, but at the same time you indulged her and covered a lot of her expenses. Were you firm in stating that you won't take over her expenses anymore? You really didn't give her a lot of time to find a new place. I don't know the market where you are, but here you don't get an apartment in 1 month, and it seems to me that you deceived her. She was convinced you would continue to help out, so I don't think you were firm enough with your plans. You are the idiot because there is a way to escalate things. You can just ghost her even if you never agreed to help her after the birth. De facto you became her support network and then you removed it overnight. This is why divorces have alimony settlements. It's her fault also for becoming dependent on you, of course. You should have never helped her and you would be less of an idiot that way, counterintuitively. Everyone's the idiot here. Lots of people have problems with confrontation and maybe you are one of them. Add a roommate who is practiced at being slippery and I can see why you had trouble speaking with her. After paying most of the rent for so long, the mooch figured she had it made. You were right to think that the demands were just going to escalate. Nevertheless, it was in your power to insist on having a talk, possibly with the presence of a friend to help you keep focused. She, on the other hand, had to know she was being a mooch and taking advantage of you. I, 15, am deaf in both ears after getting meningitis as a toddler. Luckily my parents really pushed intervention, so I can read lips, know sign language and have cochlear implants, so I'm basically like any other girl my age. I just can't hear for crap. My aunt, 40, has been staying with my family, that's me, my mom, my dad, and my 13-year-old sister, during quarantine. She is really not someone I like. She critiques every little thing my sister and I do, tells us we need to eat more or less, depending on the day, even though we're skinny, butts into our personal conversation, and just is snoopy in general. She tries to instigate fights between us, like asking my sister if she's mad I have something she doesn't. It's also important to know she's done nothing to learn about communicating with me. I'd say about 90% of the rest of my extended family knows sign language. We've told our parents about it a million times, and they've talked to her. I don't think they've given her an ultimatum, so my sister and I devised a plan. For the past few days, whenever my aunt starts talking, I just attach my hearing aids, and my sister puts in her AirPods and turns up the volume. We can understand each other fine. My aunt didn't get it the first couple of times, but I think today she understood we were ignoring her and got really upset. She told my dad, and from what I understand, he basically told her she needs to lay off if she's bothering us that bad or she can leave. I was happy to hear that, to be honest. I heard her crying later though, and that made me feel like crap. I never meant to make someone cry and now I kind of regret the whole thing. Or my sister and I are idiots for going to such extreme measures. We just wanted her to leave us alone, or at least be nice to us. Not the idiot. Your parents should have addressed this after you and your sister tried. My uncle likes to lecture everyone about all the little things. He thinks he knows everything. One of my funniest memories of my grandfather was him turning off his hearing aids while my uncle was trying to lecture him about not eating sweets. He didn't even try to be subtle about turning them off. He also picked up his book and just went back to reading. You were way nicer than you could have been. Not the idiot. What an absolute power move. I absolutely would love to be a fly on the wall to see her face when you take your implants out. I'm sorry your aunt is such a massive jerk to you and your sister. It's bad enough that you have an adult that is trying to stir up some petty teenage sibling drama, and it's honestly really disappointing that you have to go this far to get her to leave you alone. Hopefully, she learns that she can't take out her frustrations on two teen girls by making them fight each other and get some damn help if she's so petty and conniving. Not the idiot. Sounds like your aunt has narcissistic personality disorder, as reflected by her need to constantly antagonize via unsolicited criticisms, unfair and relentless judgments, intruding into your personal conversations, attempting to instigate fights between you and your sibling, and generally high levels of manipulation. She is toxic. It is wise that you block her. You should increase the block and block her completely. Doesn't matter if she's family, all she does is contribute toxicity because she has a personality disorder. Some very relevant information. My father bought a watch he loved before he died. He was always into planes, constantly on planes, took some flight school lessons. He got a Breitling, a very high-end pilot's watch. One of the major features, in fact, the selling point for my father, was that it had an emergency beacon, similar to an airplane's black box. In the wildly unrealistic situation where the plane crashed and he survived only to be lost at sea or something, he'd have a ridiculously good chance of being found. Here's the issue. I'm about to start working as a flight attendant. The love of travel, combined with my father's passion for airplanes that rubbed off on me, has kind of made it my dream job. His love of watches did too, and the dream watch that he bought is my dream watch, with one exception. The technology for beacons has changed, and his watch isn't as, hypothetically, useful as it once was. Meanwhile, Breitling, the same company that made his watch, has made the same watch, too. It's basically the same, but with more modern beacons. I want it for all the same reasons my dad wanted his, the biggest difference is that I can't afford it. I suggested selling my dad's watch, which was left to me, specifically, to finance the bulk of the purchase, and my mother kind of crap a brick that I would throw away my dad's watch. I get wanting to keep things that were important to him, and I get that I can save up and buy the one I prefer later, but I genuinely think my dad would be on my side. He was super practical. When he was dying, he would say stuff like, "I won't be sending you signs from the other side. When I'm gone, and you need to move forward." I think if he were here, he'd tell me to sell the watch for one that did the job better, and I'd still think of him every time I check the time. My mom is upset about the idea, but she never even understood why he spent so much on a watch in the first place. No idiots here, she's not wrong for wanting to respect the sentimentality. He's not sending messages or coming back, but it's comforting to have memories of people around. It's possible that she's suggesting that you might miss that sentimentality later on if you sell it. You're not wrong for selling it. We talk all the time in this sub about how your inheritance is yours to do with as you please. It's yours, you get to make the choice. Have you considered offering to sell it to your mom? Then the sentimentality isn't lost and you can get your new watch. Win-win. No idiots here, but trust me, if you sell that watch, especially if it was his prized possession, you will come to regret it. I just lost my dad in June. He, too, bought his dream watch to celebrate his retirement. He lent it to my brother for a job interview. Before my brother could return it, the watch was stolen. No heirloom watch for my dad to pass on. I'm sick about it. As I am female, there's not really much for my dad to pass on, but I can tell you that anything I do get, I will hold onto and cherish forever, and I will pass it down to my children. I guess my point is, you can always make more money. You can't get your dad's watch back once you sell it, and you can't unbreak your mom's heart once it's sold. You would not be the idiot. But maybe wait a bit until your mother's immediate grief is lessened. This watch is not like a long-owned sentimental piece. I agree with you that based on everything you have said, your father would totally support and encourage you to update. That choice, in fact, seems much more like your father than clinging to an outdated piece. Everything you have described sounds like you are your father's offspring. Courage, my friend. I'm 28 and due to this drama, I feel like I've traveled back in time to high school. I don't necessarily feel like an idiot in this equation, but I've gotten some mixed opinions on it. I reached out on another social media forum under Anonymous to get some unbiased feedback, and well, here I am. So, I used to be friends with this kid in high school. His name was Alex, and he was a grade below me. He dated my best friend for a good majority of our school years, and there was nothing aside from a platonic friendship between the both of us. After I graduated in 2010 we lost touch, but continued to have each other as friends on Facebook and Instagram. The last time I spoke to Alex was back in 2015 when my baby brother was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Alex was one of the few individuals who donated to my brother's GoFundMe page, and it was, if I remember correctly, a pretty large amount of money that he selflessly handed over for a boy he didn't know. Our last conversation was me thanking him for his generous donation, and we spoke for maybe 5 minutes following the thank you. At the beginning of this year, Alex started dating a girl named Heather. Keep in mind please that I have been in a steady and stable relationship for going on 4 years at this point. I was respectful, as I know a lot of people become jealous over nothing. So I didn't like any of his posts or reach out to him, or anything of the sort. He doesn't like any of my crap either on Facebook. However, his girlfriend reached out to me about a week ago and said, "I don't feel comfortable with you being on Alex's Facebook. Delete him, please." When I asked her why, she stated it's personal. I don't need to share why. Please just delete him so I can have a peace of mind. I told her if she didn't have a good reason then no, I wouldn't delete him, as he's always been a good friend, and as I said above, he helped my brother out tremendously with his donation, which makes me have a huge amount of respect for him. She was livid. Called me an idiot. Said that I was deliberately making her uncomfortable because I'm nothing but an idiot who feeds off of people's insecurities. I blocked her. So the people I got feedback from are basically split 50-50. Some of them think I'm an idiot and should just delete the guy on my Facebook to spare this girl's feelings. Others however think that I shouldn't because this guy and myself have never had anything to do with each other aside from a friendship basis, and taken into consideration his donation, it would make me look bad. Not the idiot. But I was respectful, as I know a lot of people become jealous over nothing. So I didn't like any of his posts or reach out to him, or anything of the sort. That way of thinking, that kind of behavior, is problematic as hell. There's nothing disrespectful in liking or commenting on others' content, let alone talking to them. That's 100% high school crap and is toxic as hell. Immature, might I add. My younger brother had all too. He's recovering now, thank God. The scariest time of my life. I hope yours is doing better. Not the idiot completely. If you aren't mature enough to accept that there are other people here so may find attractive, you aren't mature enough for a relationship. The line is not crossed by merely having someone on social media. If he was messaging you inappropriately, I'd understand. She needs to grow up. Not the idiot. Anyone that tells you to delete the guy because the girl says so is either a bunch of toxic people or enablers. If she has a problem, she has to take it up with him, his boyfriend. Wanna know why she hasn't done it? Because she doesn't want him to know that he's trying to manipulate his relationship behind closed curtains.